Hey, hey, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Truth. It's your girl, Naya Angel, coming through with my homies for life and co-host, Mr. PAT and E-Man.
What up? What up?
What's
Fellas?
good out there, listeners? What's good
Yo.
out there? What's good?
Oh man, we got some great topics to discuss this week, fellas. I cannot wait to dive into all our listeners and supporters out there. We want to thank you so much for all of your great feedback and support. If you haven't already, please head over to that YouTube channel, like, share, subscribe. We appreciate all the love. We need those subscriptions. So let's go ahead and hit that subscribe button, folks. And before we dive in this week, we have our guy E-Man who has something he wants to say. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Naya Angel. I really appreciate it. So before we start, I just want to put this out on the record before, anybody loses their mind and whatnot. But I'm just letting everybody know I still don't got no beef with Ben Affleck. I just had to make sure we start off on a really good foot and a really good note. I ain't got no beef with Ben. Seems like Ben looks like he's pretty happy with J-Lo right now again. But, I just want to make sure I put that out there. They ain't got no beef with Ben Affleck. But I got to give a shout out to Joss Whedon and Zack Snyder for agreeing with my same idea that, that role was given to him. And he shouldn't have played Batman. That's all I wanted to say. I got to chalk up, 1-0 for me. 0 for Ben Affleck, but let's get started. I'm ready to get this in. Let's go.
Yikes. Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. So let's dive into our first topic, fellas, which is actually one that is really, really interesting. I'm glad that we are talking about this because as a lot of our listeners out there know, we are super nerds and super proud about it here at The Good, the Bad, and the Truth. Okay.
Yes.
We are self-proclaimed super nerds and we love it. Okay. But we have an awesome topic to discuss this week, and it's what frustrates Black nerds about nerd culture or the perception of nerd culture. So in other words, we're about to start talking about what it's like to be a Black nerd. So if you don't mind, fellas, I'm going to go ahead and start us off and just kind of give my thoughts on this. So to the question, what frustrates Black nerds? I just think from a female perspective, so this is both Black and a Black female perspective, that is so interesting that people are so shocked about how much we know as women. It's like, dude, do you understand that I was that little girl that was in the house watching wrestling when my friends were outside, like getting ready to play with baby dolls or etc. I have lots of male cousins. Even without that, my sister, my brother, we were all into wrestling, all into cartoons, all into comic books when we were younger. So this is not like a fad that I picked up a few years ago because I met some guy and he was into it.
Quick question, Angel. Quick question. Sure. Did you stone cold stunner like any of your brothers and cousins and whatnot?
Listen, we were wrestling all the time, much to the chagrin of my mom.
Oh, so someone got the people's elbow and the rock bottom. That's what I'm.
My mom was like, oh my goodness, why are my daughters also wrestling with my son? Because my brother was the only boy, but that didn't matter because me and my sister were wrestling with him. We would do all kinds of wrestling moves on the bed. I mean, we would pretend every week we would do different wrestling matches and we would be different people. And I was always either China, Trish Stratus, or The Rock.
Someone got a satisfaction out there.
Oh my goodness, those were my people. Okay, I was really, really big into it. And okay, so y'all remember? I'm sure y'all remember DX, right?
Of course.
Okay.
Come
of
on.
And so
course,
He's
of
y'all
course.
Generation
remember how
X.
they used to come out and they used to like put their exes against their crotch and be like,
Yep, like suck it.
Suck it.
and me and my sister, okay, little girls were right there with my brother doing that every single time. So, like, this is legitimate for me. Like, those of you who don't know, like, I collect comic books and superhero items.
She got a good collection, by the way. Just letting everybody know out there.
Ooh, oh my gosh, thank you so much, E-Man. Like I really like get super excited if I'm like in a store or something and I come across something that I don't have. Like I almost always buy it. Like always. And my most prized possession, I know this is a little off topic, but I found a first edition, first session Wonder Woman comic book. The
That's really hard
first
to find.
comic book.
I heard that's really
Okay.
hard to
And
find.
like, I love it. Like, it is in its own special area in my collectibles area in the house. But I digress. Anyway, I said all that to say it's just so interesting to me that even in 2021, I'm still periodically having these conversations where I have to explain how I became a Black woman who's into quote unquote nerd culture, right? Into comics, into wrestling, into those kind of things. And it's like, really? Like I didn't realize that, nerd culture was owned by white people or just Black men. It's really ridiculous,
Yeah,
right?
It
there's
is
definitely
ridiculous.
sexism in there.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's a whole
It's
lot. That's a whole
definitely a
lot.
lot more
Nepotism.
sexism than people realize, right? Because it's one thing to be a Black nerd in of itself. When you're a Black nerd woman, it's like you almost have to go an extra mile to prove that you really are into what you are, right? Because I'll find myself into conversations and we could be talking about something that I know to be like a comic book art, and someone's like, oh, what did you just Google that? And I'm like, dude, you have no idea. I own comic books. Like, I own comic books, bro. I'm not talking about going online and looking it up. I'm saying I have a collection of comic books in my collectible items. Okay. I have a
That's
whole
right.
cabinet and
That's
closet
true.
for
It,
them.
I'm
So,
not gonna lie. That is 100% true and whatnot. 100%. So yeah,
yeah, so I would say for me, the thing that frustrates me the most is the fact that you would think with a subject that should be uniting folks because we have a common ground, that there's still that issue of sexism within this community. And it's unfortunate because it's like, why do I have to prove as a woman to my fellow, Black nerds that my knowledge is just as credible as theirs, right? That's not something that I should have to face in general, but certainly in a community where we face all of these other, forms of discrimination and etc. This should be a safe space. So I would say
Mhm.
for me,
I
that's the
agree.
area, yeah, it's for me, that's the area that frustrates me the most. And I think, you know, things are definitely changing. There are a lot of different forums now for Black nerds specifically that did not, always exist. There are Facebook groups, multiple of them. I'm in a few of them.
That's actually
And
true. There's a
yeah,
there's a whole lot
this
of Facebook groups for everything. I ain't gonna lie.
exactly right. And so I'm happy about that because like growing up, especially where we grew up, it just wasn't common for a Black girl to be into comic books or cartoons or wrestling or any of those kind of things. So I constantly felt like I was in between two worlds. I had to be like the stereotypical Black girl to a certain extent in order to fit in with certain friends. And then with other friends, it was like, oh, I had to prove that I actually was a nerd because it's like, no, I know you are, to this extent, you have this friends, you're on the step team, and you know what I'm saying? So it was just from a perspective of growing up and some of the same struggles from that perspective that I still face today as far as proving my nerdiness as a Black woman. That kind of sucks. But I will say that I am happy that there are much more comfortable spaces for Black people to, be a nerd, quote unquote, and, just really take enjoyment in those activities and, can conversate and or converse, and just have these cool forums to talk about things and etc. in an open space and in a free space. So for that, I'm really, really appreciative and happy. And I think overall, I would say that I think where we are in 2021 with the different subjects that are uniting us as a community, I'm really, really happy that there's such a large community of nerds because things are changing from so many perspectives. High school, it's cool to be a nerd now. You know what I mean? Whereas back in the day,
that is so. I'm so sorry to cut you off, Night
No,
Angel,
you're fine.
but that is so true. I'm not even gonna lie. It seems now we reverted back to the 80s. So now this whole nerd stuff, now it makes it seem like it's so cool.
Right.
And it's so crazy.
Right. And when we were growing up, especially where we grew up, you fellas know, like, that could get you joned on. And for
I ain't gonna lie, I got joned on a lot because I knew I was
right. Me too. I remember. Yep.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not even gonna lie. And just us growing up here, like, I was a nerd. Like, I'm not even going front. Like, I was a nerd. And the thing about me, I used to hide my nerdness because I was afraid everyone finding out I was an actual nerd.
Right. Same here. You had to like hide some of it. Like, I mean, people knew that I was a nerd, but I had to like dumb it down or kind of like water it down.
Right.
Because, you're just afraid to get made fun of. You're afraid to get joned on.
Exactly.
Afraid of getting clowned. So, yeah.
I mean, I got joned on a lot, but like, it was just something. I think it became with the territory and whatnot. So I don't know. I mean, it made me hide my nerdness until I got older. And now I've learned now how to accept that, damn it, I'm a nerd. And I'm like...
and proud.
Now. Like, I'm not even going to lie no more. Like, I'm an actual nerd. Proud. Like, and I do nerdy shit.
Right, exactly. I'm super proud and I'm happy about the forums that are available to us now. So just to wrap it up from my point of view, I would say what frustrates me the most is the still having to deal with sexism to a certain extent. But at the same time, I'm super excited and super happy about the forums that are available to us as Black nerds. And I'm excited to be in a new wave of excitement about being a nerd. So that's my perspective on
You gotta let me know about those Facebook groups because I'm trying to.
Yes, I would definitely, because Pat and I are in at least one together I know of, and I would definitely, I'm actually an admin in that group, and I will definitely send you an invite to that as well. And there are a few of them, so I'll definitely send some of those out. But yeah, it's great. There are so many different subjects that are discussed, and it's a lot of fun. Every day there's like some new subject that so many people engage and discuss. So definitely we'll send you that invite, man. But yeah, that's kind of my take on it, fellas. And I'm gonna go ahead and throw it to Mr. PAT to give his thoughts on it. What say you, sir?
All right. What a topic. This topic right here, I actually got this from one of those Facebook groups that myself and Naya is in. And I just thought it was an interesting topic. Because it basically said, what frustrates Black nerds about nerd culture or the perception of nerd culture? So I automatically jumped in like, oh man, let me, let me put my 2 cents in there. So basically to put my 2 cents in this podcast, the things that frustrate me about nerd culture, and I wouldn't say frustrate, because I mean, a lot of things don't really faze me like that. You know, I already know that with cultures, just any culture, whether it's nerd culture, you know, hip hop culture, it could even be like sports, just anything with like fans, anything with a huge fandom. There's always going to be a toxicity. There's always going to be, you know, things that frustrate people about that particular culture. So I know that that's there, but I guess the things that irk me, I would say, about nerd culture are definitely gatekeepers. And gatekeepers is something that I actually saw a lot of. A lot of people posted that in the forum on Facebook. I saw a lot of people say gatekeepers. And for those who don't know, gatekeepers basically means people who try to act like an authority or on anything nerd related. People who are elitists and try to dictate to others who is or isn't a true fan of something. So that's a gatekeeper, and definitely gates annoy me.
I mean, all gatekeepers can eat a dick. I don't even get
they can definitely eat a dick. But yeah, definitely gatekeepers. They're definitely, you know, real annoying. Just I think in any culture, it doesn't even have to be just nerd culture. But since we're on the subject of nerd culture, definitely gatekeepers. You know, for example, I remember back in college, one of my roommates, and he's a good friend of mine. You know, we were definitely tight back then. He was a nerd also, but he damn near wanted to like revoke my quote unquote nerd card because at the time I had never seen Star Wars. So when he heard that I'd never seen Star Wars, like any of the movies, he just went crazy.
Whoa. So sorry to cut you off, you know, but I respect everyone who loves Star Wars. Star Wars is not my thing, and I don't disrespect. It's not my thing. But I don't disrespect
Star Wars.
Hey, I know Nia Angel loves Star Wars.
Yeah, I know Nia loves it.
I know she loved it to death. So I still love her regardless. But I ain't gonna disrespect, you know, somebody who don't love something.
Right. And look, I told my man, I was like, look, dude, like when I was growing up, like just being real, like niggas was not into Star Wars. Like, like that's not
facts.
That's facts.
We was not talking about Star Wars like growing up. Like that was just something I like at the time, like I grew up in New York, like because I'm talking elementary school. So I grew up in New York and I'm living in a predominantly Black area. And, you know, of course, most of my friends, 90% of my friends are Black. So Star Wars never, ever came into the conversation. You know, we like X-Men, you know, we like Spider-Man. You know, we was into comics, really. We was into, you know, Marvel, DC, of course, that's Batman, you know, so.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so we was into that. But Star Wars, nah, we wasn't fucking with Star Wars. Like, I know I definitely wasn't fucking with Star Wars. And like, you know, I just never got around to seeing it. Like, I just never had an interest. But at the same time,
that's with me too.
You know, at the same time, I was familiar with, you know, the characters and their names and, you know, even, I guess, some of the storylines. But I had just never sat down and watched the movie. But anyway, so he basically was like, oh, man, you can't be a real nerd until you see Star Wars and blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, man, like, but we did sit down and watch it. And then he asked me what I thought, because we sat down and watched the first one. And I was like, man, it's all right, but I just can't see myself really getting into it. Like, you know, I was like, it's fine,
which is fine.
And it's one of those things that really isn't for everyone. Like, some people are like, okay, you're either a Star Wars fan or you're a Star Trek fan. And then sometimes people are neither. So it's like, it's not for everyone. That's
right, exactly. And that's what I was trying to tell him. Like,
Star Trek was okay.
I'm though. Like, there's certain things that I like. Like, for example, he wasn't really into comics. He wasn't into, like, you know, Marvel, DC. Like, he didn't know anything about that stuff. But at the same time, I wasn't like trying to gatekeep. I wasn't like a gatekeeper to the nerd culture. Like, oh man, you're not a real nerd because you know, you don't know about Spider-Man or whoever, you know. So yeah, so basically that's an example of gatekeeping. So that's definitely something that's pretty annoying, you know. And then also people who don't watch like Dragon Ball Z or anything like that, you know, it's like, come on.
Right.
I mean,
So
that's
wait,
my favorite
are
anime.
y'all
I ain't
fans
gonna
of
lie.
Dragon Ball Z though?
I'm not really into it.
I
But
like it. That's my favorite
I
anime.
like it too.
I've seen it here and there. But it's not something I've really got into heavy like that. But I mean, I could definitely see myself getting more into that than Star Wars. I'll say that much.
Gotcha.
And I'm sure at some point in time I probably will dive more into it. But yeah, I even had somebody else tell me, "Oh man, you don't like Dragon Ball Z?" But I'm like, "Oh, here we go."
Nah. I'm gonna tell everybody like this, man. My Dragon Ball Z is my all-time favorite anime, but I would say one of the best animes that I would say I would really enjoy and play it back to back is Yu-Gi-Oh! And whatnot. A lot of people don't even know what that is.
Oh my God, I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh, sir, like Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Yeah, I remember Yu-Gi-Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh is my shit. I don't even get
used
it. Like, I'm not even gonna lie.
Yu-Gi-Oh.
I was trying to really get into the card game, but that's the same thing. I couldn't get into the card game, even with like Pokemon and whatnot. Pokemon was dope.
Yeah, I used to watch that joint. I remember Cass was definitely into Pokemon. I remember.
And see, I was more into Yu-Gi-Oh than Pokemon because like Yu-Gi-Oh was kind of like the advanced version, like the more mature version of Pokemon. It felt like, because it was still dealing with like monsters and powers or whatever, but it was more so like towards the anime side of it, whereas Pokemon felt like it was more geared towards like children, whereas Yu-Gi-Oh felt like it was more geared towards like teenagers, if that makes sense.
That makes sense, because the characters were like teens. That makes sense.
Exactly.
Here comes the crazy thing about Pokemon and whatnot. So the guy who created Pokemon was actually a bug collector and whatnot. He was a bug collector.
I'm sorry.
If you notice all the Pokemon, don't they all look a little bit like bugs and whatnot?
Right.
So it's very interesting when I found that out. When I first was watching Pokemon, when and I think Pokemon came out when I was in middle school, and I was like, it kind of makes sense, you know. But just see how a bug collector created one of like the dopest, you know, animes, and now he expanded that thing so far where he got he made 3 movies like in the movie theater, and I find that's dope as shit. You know?
Yeah, definitely. Well, actually, since we're on the subject of anime real quick, so here's my thing with anime. I actually do like anime, but I like, for example, an anime version of something that I already like. For example, I know there's an anime version of X-Men. I don't know if y'all have ever seen that one. Because they actually were doing it was Japanese anime. They were doing some Japanese anime versions of like Iron Man. There's one of Wolverine.
Really?
Yeah. I think I wanna say it played on
There's a lot.
I want to say it was on Cartoon Network at some point, or what? It was on one of the major channels. I
think it was on Cartoon. Cartoon Network. That sounds about right. If it was in the 90s.
But these animes actually came out like in the, I want to say the early maybe mid 2000s, like 2010s, somewhere around that time. But anyway, so I like Japanese anime versions of things that I already like. Like I already mentioned the X-Men one, which was actually a series, and it's on DVD. But I love that because the thing about anime is I like the style. It's like a more sleeker style, the way they're illustrated. See, I'm a nerd where like I like the artistry of you know, the animation, because I'm an artist myself.
That makes sense.
I'm always looking at.
Yes, I was going to say that makes sense for you because you're an artist.
Right, exactly. So I'm always looking at the details and like, you know, just how they're designed and how they move and like their costumes. I'm looking at all those details. So that's what I like about anime, and particularly Japanese anime, because of how they illustrate the characters. Another one that I like right now, I'm kind of watching it here and there when I have time, but they have a Godzilla series on Netflix, and it's in Japanese anime, and
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, and I mean it's a little bit on the slower side, but just looking at it, I'm just like, man, I like the way this shit looks. You know, it has nice graphics and everything. So yeah, I do fuck with anime in that way. But
you need to actually see the Japanese anime of Dragon Ball Z. That joint is like, it's crazy.
Yeah, the original. So there's different versions of Dragon Ball of Dragon Ball Z, because Dragon Ball Z started off as Dragon Ball, which is the story of Goku when he was like a little boy. Right. And then Dragon Ball Z, it evolves to him being older and etc. And then you have like Dragon Ball Z Evolution and etc. But like Dragon Ball Z is definitely one of my favorite animes. I would probably say my favorite second to this anime called Death Note. And
I've heard of Death Note.
Yeah, Death Note and Devilman Crybaby are my favorite animes. Like those three.
My man's into Death Note. Like
man,
I'm talking about like he into it. Like he into it.
So listen, I know we like really got like really far off the main topic, but like the thing about Death Note is that it is more than just like your typical anime where you have like your antagonist and protagonist and you're trying to, you know what I'm saying? There's just like good and evil. This is a case of like, of serious detective and intellect, and it's just different. This is an intellectual anime, right? If you're an intellectual, you are really going to love Death Note because it is a game back and forth. And I don't want to say too much for those who haven't seen it or if you two are going to check it out, but there is not.
I might check it out.
Listen, you will love every single episode of that anime. Like it is definitely that good. Just throwing that out there.
That's what's up. Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. But just to, I guess, get this thing back on track, because I know we got other topics to discuss.
Right.
So the things I don't, I guess, don't like, but I guess the things that irk me about nerd culture or the perception of nerd culture. So another one would be racist nerds / trolls. And I mean that's self-explanatory for the most part. You know,
we have racist nerds out here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You come on, man. Lord. You already know,
man.
It's racist of every type of
of every type. Yeah, I mean, definitely some suspected white supremacists in the nerd culture. I mean, because speaking of forums, going back to forums, I mean, there's other forums that I'm part of on social media. And, you know, of course, there's the black nerd one. And then there's like the general ones where it's like everybody of every race. So I see a lot of, you know, some of the white nerds in there talking shit. Like I see them saying some racist shit. And I don't even respond. Like I really don't even say much in a lot of these forums because the last thing I want to do is get into a back and forth. You know, and it's like it's just a waste of my time. So I just read the comments and kind of just laugh and keep scrolling, you know. But yeah, it's definitely out there. The racist nerds / trolls, they're definitely out there. You know, they're the ones who complain about you know, any race swapping that goes on.
I think that's what it is.
You know, or like what they call quote unquote shoehorning. That takes place with like comic books and superhero movies and TV shows. You know, they're basically the ones who feel that they own all of the intellectual property out there simply because a lot of the mainstream stuff was created by white people and white companies. These types right here are basically like the MAGA of nerd culture, you know, because we know Make America Great Again is code speak for Make America White Again.
Ooh, speak that truth, sir.
So the racist nerds / trolls, they just want to try to keep everything mainstream nerd culture. And basically they want to keep mainstream nerd culture as white as possible. So, you know, just being real, that's another element. Man. You know, that's another element of nerd culture that is, I mean, it's a joke, honestly. I don't really take these people seriously. But I would say that's something that I guess irks me a little bit, because I'm just like, all right,
I'm
it's
glad
like
I'm not
you
even
can't
in
escape
these groups.
racism.
I can't deal with stupidness. I just can't.
Unfortunately, that's part of like every culture.
Right. I was going to say that's everywhere, unfortunately.
It's like in every corner. And this is though one of those corners where, racism is in there. It's just one of the elements in there, unfortunately, one of the toxic elements in there. So yeah, that. And then speaking of racist nerds / trolls, so another thing that irks me about nerd culture is the black nerds who seek validation from said racist nerds / trolls. And I'm talking about,
goodness.
I'm talking about the black people who partake in nerd culture and try hard to seek acceptance and validation from their white counterparts who are racist. And I won't get too deep into that, because I actually talk more about that, black nerds seeking validation. Mm-hmm. Basically, I talk more about that in an article on my website, thepatchannel.com. And the article is called Black History is Way Beyond Slavery, Revisionism in Racist Nerd Culture. Mm-hmm. So I go a little bit more deeper into that. So I won't do that here. But that's another thing that irks me, is just black nerds seeking validation from these racist trolls and nerds out here. Last one I would say would be the whole, you're not black enough if you're a nerd, which we pretty much touched on earlier when Naya was speaking. It's basically as if you're not an authentic black person if you don't fit the negative stereotype of what is considered black. So, if you're a nerd, it's like you're less of a black person. You're not, you're black on the outside, but you act white, you talk white, it's like that type of thing. So yeah, we touched on it. We touched on it before.
We actually did. Did.
So that's something that, and I guess that goes more to the perception of nerd culture. Because I think people think nerd culture is mainly for white people. I think, or like basically whites and Asians. I think people attribute nerd culture to whites and Asians. So it's like when black people are a part of nerd culture, it's like you kind of like, it's like you getting your hood pass or, your black card revoked or some shit like that. So, so that definitely irks me about nerd culture and the perception of nerd culture. So those are just some things off top. I'm sure there's some other things, but of course I'm gonna let E-Man go. I'm sure there's some things out there that of course frustrate you about nerd culture or the perception of nerd culture.
Yes, sir. Thank you for sharing, Mr. PAT. Definitely agree with a lot of what you just said there. So let's go ahead and throw it to our guy, E-Man. What say you on the subject, sir?
All right. So it seems like, after all this wonderful, observations and just good, I would say, opinions on this, I got to follow up a little stronger, actually, So the thing that frustrates me about this whole nerd culture thing is that we're picking and choosing and whatnot. And what I mean by picking and choosing, we're picking what is classifying us as nerds.
It's that gatekeeping shit.
Yeah. And just like, what PAT states, that whole gatekeeping shit. And I definitely agree with that. We don't need gatekeepers to know how nerdy you are. I tell everyone, and I'm gonna break it down very well. Even where I grew up, where I was at, I had to hide my own nerdness because I know I was going to get Joan on. And as you see, I've done a few little bit of joning. If you listen to a few, episodes and whatnot, but for me, you know, it kind of hurt because it took me a while to figure out who I was as a person, you know. That's what frustrates me, you know, me not just not knowing that I'm a nerd, but I always knew I was always one. And it was just something, you know, I couldn't shy away from, you know, just because it was not just the cartoons I was in, but just the valuable information I wanted to know, how I was so much in the science, so many different things and whatnot. Like, there's one thing that many people don't know about me that I'm actually about to share with everyone, that I actually used to write poetry and whatnot. Many people don't even know that.
Cool. Me
Mhm.
too. I write
Yeah.
poems as well.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I didn't know that, E-Man. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people that don't know. And I'm going to drop another bomb on everybody like this, right? Many people don't know that my favorite poet, you know, is actually a woman. But a lot of people don't know that my favorite poet is actually Emily Dickinson, by the way.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
So,
Okay.
you know, so right now I'm dropping some heavy nerd shit on everybody right now. If you're listening right now, you see? So that's many things I had to hide, you know, to the point where I was actually buying this woman's books and whatnot and reading it in secrecy. You know, that's how much of a nerd I was, because I didn't want nobody to find out that I was that much of a nerd, you know, even, you know, me loving cartoons and whatnot. So when many people come around me and they chill, when you come around my space, you know, I'm always going to have cartoons on because that's how I dope out. That's just my thing, you know? Yeah. And I enjoy, you know, Marvel and DC. But I'm gonna drop another bomb on everyone that my favorite all-time cartoon is Tom and Jerry. And I only share that with only certain people because it's simple fact.
Hey, Tom and Jerry.
You know what I'm saying?
Tom and
That
Jerry.
ain't nothing gonna be better than that. And that's one of the oldest reigning cartoons out and whatnot, you know? And now I've shared a lot, you know, of my nerdness out here. That's the frustration I go out every day, you know, just not just finding someone to accept my nerdness. It's a simple fact that, you know, you dealing with a nerd, an actual nerd, you know, someone who dopes out on weird shit, you know, and I'm proud of all my weird shit. But here comes the thing. The same thing with this whole gatekeeping thing, you know, is what keep us not just trapped in this box. Nobody wants to be themselves anymore, you know? So I tell everyone, like, you know, I might not be in the Star Wars and whatnot, and you are. You still a nerd in my book and everything like that. But I'm not going to discredit you.
Right.
See, all this stuff that we keep doing, we want to just keep discrediting people to figure out, is this person a nerd because, you know, they're in the Star Wars, you know? Is this person not a nerd? Well, I don't know. He's not in the Marvel. He's not in the DC, you know? This person's not a nerd. Well, I don't know, you know? And we go with this whole back and forth, and what we get, nothing but chaos and whatnot. You know, like, I can't believe this weird racism shit to figure out just because, like, Stan Lee created comics and whatnot and created some dope characters, and he had co-creators on a lot of characters also too. You know, that doesn't mean, like, you know, like you know, you have like that right and authority and whatnot to tell me what I should like and what I should dislike, because I don't tell you to do that. You know. Right. So the frustration just comes on, like, you know, nerds trying to keep battling with other nerds for no reason. And this is the shit that it just got to stop, you know, because if not, you know, we're just going to keep dividing ourselves more and more, you know,
unnecessarily
and unnecessarily, you know.
Yep.
That's the shit that keeps bothering me every day, you know, because I tell everyone now I'm 34, and now I don't not just love my nerdness. I actually dope out to it so much that I enjoy being a nerd. You know what I'm saying? And it don't even bother me when I tell people this and whatnot. You know, before, when you talk about 10, 12 years ago, when it was difficult even being a nerd because you got to fit into like this matrix or this status quo just to fit in. You know, it bothered people when people try to get to know you and whatnot, they'd be like, huh? Like, that's you? You know? So, like, yeah. You know? So all those nerds out here, like, you know, trying to, you know, gatekeep and do us, y'all need to stop that shit, man. You know? Stop it. You know? Us as nerds, we're supposed to be sitting over here communicating with each other, you know, try to get us into other stuff that we trying to get interested in and whatnot, you know? That's the thing. Because I'll tell everyone like this, right? I haven't watched Star Wars, but I haven't had a real nerd that really got me into watching Star Wars. I've seen, like, you know, I know all the characters. I've seen, you know, a few like movies and whatnot, but I haven't seen anything recently. So like, that's the thing about being nerds. Our goal is, you know what I'm saying, to dope out with our nerdiness and show how powerful we are because we're into weird, cool shit and whatnot. And this is what, and oh, so sorry. I've been going so passionate about this because this thing really bothers me because this is what happens when you're an actual nerd. But we just need to start doing better and being better and everything. You know? That I think that's the goal, us as nerds out here. We need to start doing better and being better, you know? Because I want to make sure that if there's something that we can dope out, let's make sure we do it in a safe space, and then we can all, you know what I'm saying, learn from each other and all have fun with it, you know? You know, I'm gonna just leave it as that, you know? You know, I don't think I have much to say because I feel like the more I keep talking, more and more passion is gonna keep coming out from me because this is what I do. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
This is what I do.
We hear that. That's
Right. Okay. Well, thank you, sir. We appreciate you sharing your opinion, of course. Great points made, fellas.